powers again. Okay, sure, absolutely. So, you know what? I'm not even going to go back to the notes. Separation of powers is in our federal government. Okay, they were so worried about the concentration of, let's say it was just one branch of government, the executive branch, and the executive branch could make the laws, they can enforce the laws, they can judge the laws. They would then, of course, be fearful that that branch of government will be so incredibly powerful. Okay, so before you have checks and balances, our founding fathers said, you know what? We need to separate the amount of things each branch of government could do, because whether you have one person, like a king, or one branch, that branch of government's going to become extremely powerful if there's just one of them. So they wanted to separate the amount of powers and what each branch of government could do to limit the power that each group has. So there's a reason that the legislative branch makes the laws, okay, and they could, they control the money of the country, but at the same time, they're not able to enforce the laws, okay, and at the same time, they're not able to judge the laws. So it is to make sure our government doesn't become too powerful, all right, but it's just the separation of the powers that happen in our country to make sure one branch doesn't become too powerful. And to ensure that one branch doesn't become too powerful, that's where we have, obviously, our checks and balances. There was this question, but I do not remember what it was. Well, Gentiana, if you remember, just email me. Any other questions?
I found it, and it was like the one that said the amendment process was included in the United States Constitution in order to.
Okay, so anytime you see amendment, okay, it has to do with change. So I would imagine, I don't remember the question, has to do with meet the changing needs of society or something? Would that be the correct answer? Okay, so anytime you see amendment, we allowed amendments in our Constitution because we understood that everything was not going to be figured out in 1789. Things are going to come up, as you could tell, throughout America. We're going to have to make some changes. Okay, an amendment was put in place, an amendment process was put into place to make sure we meet the needs of a changing society. All right. So anytime you see an amendment, you think has to do with change in some way, and you should be fine. All right. All right, so let's move on. Let's head back to the notes here on today's focus question. Couple of things. We're going to spend like the first 5 minutes just kind of going over what our economic system is. Now, the way I teach our economic system in the United States is through layers. So you're just going to be introduced to our idea of what our economic system is. And I'll really try and go through the differences. So our political system, the way our government operates, is a republic. Okay, I'm writing this in the chat. An economic system is how a country makes money. So our economic system is known as, I mean, technically the word is free enterprise capitalism, but again, you're just going to know it as capitalism. Okay, so how does our country make money? Now, this may come as a little bit of a surprise to you, but different countries have different ways of making money. Our way is called capitalism, and you're probably so familiar with it, you don't even realize that you're familiar with it. Even if you don't hold a job at this point, you kind of understand how money and what happens when you have money and how it kind of works. All right. So how does our country make money? Okay, we have a free enterprise capitalist system. And here's the basic idea of it. It's very similar to democracy, where, what I mean from a political system perspective, where people choose what products they want to buy and where to buy it from. All right. So you have, let's say you work a job, you get $100. Let's take taxes out for a second. Let's just say you have $100. Okay. You decide what to do with that money. If you want to spend $50 on a game and the other $50 on food, you can. If you want to spend $20 on food and you want to spend the rest to save it, that's up to you. You get to decide what you want to do with your money. What you'll start to learn as well is you get to also decide what job you want to have in your future. You're not told what to do. There are certain societies and certain economic systems, some you'll learn are called socialism or communism, where you do not have choice on the money on your money. your money goes to the government, and then the government provides you free things, so to speak. Okay? So our whole idea is the economy we choose is choosing an economic system that is called capitalism. All right? And ultimately, the government should not interfere in what companies do or what people buy. All right? So that is the idea of capitalism. So you're just going to have a very basic understanding of it now. Okay? But as time goes on, we're going to develop what it means to be a capitalist society. But the reason we're going to just be introduced to this word now, okay, is we're going to look at this major problem that is starting with our new country is the debt we're in. Okay, how are we going to pay back that debt? All right, and what we're going to look at today is something called Alexander Hamilton, who is our first ever Secretary of the Treasury under George Washington. He's a pretty famous New Yorker. He's a pretty famous founding father. There's a rather famous play that came out called Hamilton, all right, that you can see on Disney Plus. I actually would recommend to watch it if you have Disney Plus over the next couple of days, if you're bored and have nothing to do. But anyway, Alexander Hamilton comes up with his financial plan to help improve the American economy. All right. Yeah, Madison, it is good. I mean, I'm not, as a history teacher, this is kind of weird for me saying, as a history teacher, I'm not the biggest fan of it, like, because I'm not the biggest person when it comes to Broadway and dancing and singing. But, you know, their portrayal of Hamilton, their portrayal of Aaron Burr, their portrayal of King George III is good. They do a nice job with it. I'm just not the biggest, you know, High School Musical dancing, singing Broadway guy. That's not my thing. But I would definitely recommend to watch it if you haven't already, but that's completely up to you. All right, so Alexander Hamilton, as Secretary of the Treasury, has the difficult task of trying to improve our nation's economy. And his financial plan, we will look back to be a little bit controversial, but ultimately successful in fixing our economy. Okay? So the last thing I say about capitalism, okay, I'm just going to kind of go through some of the pillars here so you have a kind of understanding on what this kind of leads to. So capitalism, if we allow these things, and I'm just going to shout them out, they won't make full sense, but to kind of give you an understanding. To lead to profit in either a person or a country's well-being, you need people to own their own property. So many people, you know, maybe you live in an apartment and you rent. Okay, and that's a little bit different, but you know, the goal is for people to own their own house. If they own their own home, then that could lead to a lot more money that's brought in to the family. All right, capitalism also encourages free enterprise, right? This is what we talked about. People are able to choose what products they want to buy and where to buy it from. Okay, and companies are able to sell what products they want to sell. They're not forced to sell anything. All right, if you have a shoe company or a sneaker company and they only want to sell sneakers, that's good. That's free enterprise. All right, you're not going to buy pencils from Nike, right? You're not going to buy You're not going to buy sneakers from Ticonderoga pencils. Okay, you have the choice on what they want to sell. All right, freedom of choice. You have the choice to what you want to buy. You spend your money. This doesn't sound too crazy, but trust me, there are societies. North Korea is a great example, where you are not able to buy what you want to buy. You are actually provided things by the government. Okay, you have no choice on what you buy. You have no choice on what you want to eat. I know tonight, it's Taco Tuesday. It's Taco Tuesday in the Panio household. Like, we have choice. We bought those products to make Taco Tuesday. Okay? The name of their system's called communism, Maheen. We'll talk all about that a little bit later. Okay, Taco Tuesday, though, in the Panio household, we bought the products for it. Not the most expensive meal. Later on this week, we're going out for my brother's birthday. We're going to a nice steakhouse. So we're going to spend a lot more money on a nice steak. Okay, that's a lot more money than a Taco Tuesday night. But my point is that I have choice on how much money I want to spend on food. All right, yeah, happy birthday to my brother. I'll let him know. I'll let him know. All right, competition we'll talk about, and limited government we'll talk about a little bit more when we get to some of the deeper parts of capitalism in Unit 3 and Unit 4. All right, so for now, I just want to move on to today's major part of the lesson, which is Alexander Hamilton's financial plan. Okay, so copy down what's in yellow, and definitely copy down what's in green. So it's actually weird the way I did it. The green part is the most important part actually for this, but we're going to read through everything to make sure. So how do we get our country's economy back and rolling? Okay. Now, this is what happens throughout American history. Our economy goes up, our economy goes down, our economy goes up, our economy goes down. But we have been extremely lucky, with maybe the exception of the Great Depression, where our economy compared to the rest of the world is generally very good. I know before COVID hit, we were the #1 economy by far. And I still think after COVID hit, we still are #1 in terms of our economic numbers. Now, that's a little bit complicated to explain to an 8th grade student just becoming familiar with, or 11th grade students like you guys, becoming familiar with the economic system. But our numbers have generally always been very good. We've been very fortunate with that. And that leads to things like even a poor person in the United States. This is a true statement. If you're poor in the United States and in the poor bracket, you're still richer than 97% of the world. All right, and this is a huge, an interesting issue. We are in a lot of debt. And what happens is there are times where we're in a lot of debt and then we come out of it. And right now, currently in 2020, we're in tons of debt. And I think this will become a huge problem later on. This is my opinion. I don't have the fact. I'm a history teacher, not a future teacher. I think this will become a huge problem. But during our teachings here, I don't know. Can you guys hear me? Did it freeze? Maheen's asking, did it freeze? You guys let me know if you're good. They can hear me? Okay, everyone can hear me. Sorry, guys. Okay, so Maheen, just maybe leave and come back. All right, so let's talk. So the nation's economy was faltering after the American Revolutionary War. We were in a ton of debt. And the last thing, according to George Washington, which is true, you don't want to be in debt to start a country, because if you're constantly trying to pay back the money you owe, you can never actually make money. So if you want to start a business and you take out too much money and you're spending your whole time as a business owner trying to make back that money, the business ain't going to succeed. All right. My wife has started a business and she took out a loan for $5,000, right? And within a couple of weeks, it was already paid back. All right. Now her company is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. God bless. She has a teacher bag business, right? But the initial loan didn't put her in far enough debt. Okay. If you are in a lot of debt, you can never succeed. Okay. So Alexander Hamilton decided that there needed to be a couple of things. Okay. And this is the first thing. The taxes that the government collected, okay, which now the Constitution allows, is going to be put into one national bank. All right, so now we have one of those key starting moments in American history that are really underratedly important. The Constitution never spoke about a national bank, right? So if the Constitution never spoke about the national bank, everyone right now in the chat, what level of government is responsible then, technically speaking, for handling banks and money situation? Excellent, the states. Okay, so this is a problem. How do you have a bank, okay, how do you have a financial system trying to improve when the federal government doesn't even have control of it technically? So we're going to create a financial plan that incorporates the national bank, okay? So what they're going to use to say that there is a national bank is through the elastic clause, okay? So now think back to the Constitution. This is why knowing the Constitution is important. The elastic clause says just because something's not written in the Constitution doesn't mean the federal government might not have power to it if we seem for it to be. So Alexander Hamilton essentially argued, okay, that this national bank needs to be put into place so all of the money goes into that one national bank. All right. Now, if you are, let's say, Thomas Jefferson, if you're someone who is a strict constructionist, someone who is, that's from the textbook, someone who wants to make sure that the federal government doesn't get too strong, this is kind of going against that. All right. But the national bank was supposed to do a couple of things. All right. Number one, they wanted to have one paper or coin currency. All right, so what that means is, in Hamilton's financial plan, you're not going to have a $5 bill that's from New York that is different a $5 bill from Pennsylvania. there's going to be one uniform and consistent currency. All right, and all these states could use together, and this is going to make sure and help build up our economy because everyone's using the same currency. All right. Also, with the national bank, okay, banks were now able to give loans to farmers in the country. So farmers who are in debt from the Revolutionary War, who are upset from things like Shays' Rebellion, they're able to now get loans. Okay. And this officially created a free enterprise capitalist system. So this is the reality of the situation, guys and girls. You want banks to be able to give loans to people because when you go to college or you buy a car or you buy a house, this is just the reality of the situation. I'm not being mean. I'm hoping you guys are successful in life. When you start out in your life, you're going to need a loan to some capacity, whether that's going to college, whether it's buying a house or buying a car. Okay? Who gives you that loan? The banks. And then over time, you pay back loans. If you don't have a national bank, you have to have state banks. But here's the thing. State banks can only be so strong in terms of the money that it brings in because it's just for that state. If you have a national bank, the national and federal government can provide loans to people that want things like homes, on things like cars. Okay? So Hamilton's financial plan included a national bank and ways to get the nation to get more financial stability. All right. The last thing he created was a protective tariff. Okay, and we're gonna get one more slide after this because we're gonna learn what a tariff is today. And a tariff is officially a tax on imported goods. So if you get a product from another country, okay, it comes into this country, you're going to pay a tax on that. Now, tariffs sometimes happen in American history, sometimes they don't. Right now, we have a tariff specifically on China in 2020. So anything that comes in for China, you have to pay an extra tariff with, okay, an extra tax. And that tax is gonna go to the American government to help pay off the tax. And I'm gonna kind of explain why we have a tariff put in place, specifically the beginning of American history. Does anyone need more time with this slide? Because I'd like to move on. Okay, I'll give you another 30 seconds to a minute. And again, if you don't finish copying, just take a photo of it or go back to the YouTube and finish copying. Okay. And we'll give everyone 10 more seconds. Okay, we'll look to see what a tariff is.
Mr. Penn, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, if you put your money in a national bank, don't you got tax on it? Like,
No,
if you
no.
take that alone?
No, not necessarily. Okay, so good question. It's not a tax, it's called an interest. So the reason why the government will give you a loan is what's called interest. So over time, if something costs $100,000 and they put interest on it, over time when you pay it back, it's not going to cost $100,000. It's going to cost $105,000. So the bank's going to make, let's say, a $5,000 profit off of giving you a loan. They're not just going to give you loans for fun, for free. It's going to end up costing you in the longer run. All right. So that's called an interest. It's not a tax, but that is how the bank makes money. Now, from a national bank perspective, yes, if they give something with an interest, that could pay back some federal government debt. All right. So it's not a tax, it's interest, but it essentially works the same way. Okay. I know what you're kind of saying. So that's a really good question. All right. Let's go over tariffs really quick. This is not the most fun part of my class. I realize that. And as an 8th grader, I hated learning about America's economy. But I think when you get older and you Go from there. Navaya, that's a tough question. Can we trust the bank with our money? In 2020, yes. In 1820, not quite. All right, they didn't have regulations put into place to make sure, and we'll see that the banks failing, for those that know anything about the Great Depression, the banks failing is the reason we went into the Great Depression, not necessarily the stock market crash. So yes and no. All right, yes, it's fine now to trust the banks with our money, but back in American history, it wasn't a perfect system. All right. Yeah, so people steal other people's money from the bank, but yes, but like you're protected. Like the government or the bank will always make sure you get your money if your money's stolen now. All right, but back in American history, that wasn't the case. That's why bank robberies were a lot bigger in American history, back in history. All right, so why would the government place a tariff on tax or imported goods? Okay, so a tariff is specifically when goods come in from other countries. All right. So this is the last thing you're copying down. And we're going to look at the why, okay? Because it should make sense. You have products you could buy from the United States, okay? And you have products you could buy from other countries, okay? Let's put those two categories out there. Okay, a couple things that improve an economy. If you buy something from the United States, that's helping out our economy in multiple different ways. Okay, way number one would be that you're putting money into a person that is hiring people to have a job. Therefore, the company's growing. Therefore, money's circulating throughout the country. That's a good thing. When you buy from other countries, even though it may be cheaper, you're not helping out necessarily America's economy as much as you would if people are buying from other countries. So America in our beginning, because we're in so much debt, we say, you know what? We need to make sure people are buying from their own country. Okay? But you don't want to force. You don't ever want to force someone to buy from a certain place, because then it's not capitalism anymore. If you say you have to buy from the United States, you're no longer operating in a free enterprise system. You no longer have choice. So you want to now give incentive to people to buy from America, and the way they do this is through tariffs. Manuela, if the banks make profits on loans by using interest, then why do banks sometimes deny loans? Manuela, such a great question. Okay, and I'm actually really impressed because I don't expect these questions from young kids. If you can't prove that you could pay back a loan, Emanuela, and the bank's not going to make money off of the interest, they don't want to give you a loan. So this is why we talk about having good credit or having a good credit score, right? The reason you want this is to make sure you can prove, hey, I've paid back all of these loans before, I'm definitely going to pay you back. Otherwise, if you can't prove that you can pay back the loan, you don't make enough money to pay back the loan. Like, so here's an example. I'm a teacher. I'm not going to be able to own a $30 million home because the amount of money I make will never be enough for me to pay back the bank for a loan. So our country and our banking system makes sure that you could pay back a loan. Therefore, they make profit off it. They're not going to give you a loan if you can't prove that you could pay it back, which is like anything else. Like, if I give you, Emmanuel, a loan for $50,000 and I say, okay, you have 2 years, just make sure I get back $60,000, but you don't have a job, that's a really stupid loan given by me. Because you've shown nothing that you could pay back this loan because you don't have a job at this point, unless you work in a small job. But $50,000, that's a big loan to pay back. All right? So why would the government place a tariff or a tax on imported goods? Okay. Since our economy, good morning, Ms. Martinez, how are you? Since America's country is so new, if you're not buying from America, our economy is going to get off to a slower start, okay? And we have these new companies that are starting out, new farmers, new merchants, new manufacturers that are making products, okay? Because think back to the Revolutionary War. Who made the products back during the Revolutionary War? That would be Britain. So now we have companies starting out for the first time in our country, okay? And now they need to manufacture more goods, and they're just starting out. For them to stay in business, you need to make sure products are being bought by them. Is it true the U.S. makes $8 wage and Texas makes $5, which makes Texas houses cheaper? I don't know if that's necessarily the case, but essentially, Texas housing is cheaper because when you go further down south, there's more land. The taxes aren't as bad. When you start moving to cities with higher population densities, the taxes are higher. Therefore, it's a lot easier to get a house when you live down south. Okay, so essentially the rule is this. The higher your population in a smaller area, the higher the taxes. Okay? When you go to other places where there's not as big of a population, the money for houses is a lot less. Okay, so if you try and buy a mansion in New York City, it's going to cost you $50 million. You want to buy a mansion in Texas, it might cost you $1 million. Okay? Gentiana, so is this kind of like mercantilism? It's not like mercantilism, Gentiana, where now it's just capitalism. So mercantilism was the economic system under Britain. It's a good question. This is more like having choice on where you buy, but you're being encouraged just to buy from America. Okay, Liz Mel, but don't they want people to have pay late so they can gain more money from interest? Liz Mel, I don't know if they want that, but they make sure that if you do pay late, you're going to pay more, so it's going to end up benefiting them. So I guess it doesn't hurt them, but I'm not necessarily, if you're constantly late with your payments, you're not going to get a loan. All right, so that's a good question. The country provides raw materials, yes. So no one's providing raw materials here. We're producing our own raw materials, and then we're the ones selling the product. So I wouldn't say it's mercantilism because we're not providing it for another country. We're just providing it for ourselves. Okay? Now, this is the key thing, the last part here, and this lesson has run a little bit late. I apologize. You're not going to have much time to work on the assignment, but that's how it goes sometimes. I do apologize. When you buy stuff that's manufactured in the United States, this helps the economy grow faster than it would if you buy from foreign countries, okay? So the tariff is put into place, okay, to counteract the idea that if you don't buy from America and don't help out our economy, the product that you buy from another country, you're going to pay a little bit more for, and that money that you're paying extra is now going to go back into our country, okay? So a great example is, okay, my wife's teacher bag business. Again, she's a teacher. She also owns a teacher bag business. So she does a lot, which is great. The teacher bag business buys products from China. Okay. Now we have a tariff on China. She has to pay an extra $3,000 per shipment, basically. That extra $3,000 she pays because she's not buying from the United States. That extra money will now go into the US government to counteract the fact that she's not buying from the United States, okay? So a tariff isn't necessarily stopping anyone from buying from other countries. It's just letting them know that they're gonna have to pay a little bit extra, all right? So let me go through the assignment. First off, I wanna just say, I apologize anytime I give you an assignment and I don't give you some time to work on it in class. It looks like these will be one of those times. I do apologize, and oftentimes if you don't fully do the assignment, I kind of give you a little bit more leeway with that because I know other stuff goes on throughout the day. All right, so I apologize in this case where we don't have enough time to do that. All right, you know what? Tomorrow we'll start with these, okay? Because I want you to do the assignment first. All right, tomorrow we'll start with those Regents questions. If you go to the Google Classroom, you're going to have an interview, of a fake reporter, so to speak, interviewing Alexander Hamilton. Okay? So this interview with Alexander Hamilton, okay, which you're seeing right here, this interview with Alexander Hamilton, okay, is about two things. And then what you're doing is you're going to answer these three questions, but you're going to do it on the Google Doc that I shared. All right, so pretty much all of the questions should be from the interview. All right, I gave you a little bit of an answer key here. So you could just put the answers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, nice and easy for you guys to be able to do the assignment. All right. So you guys have a minute. I wouldn't even say you have to get started at this point. I do apologize, class went a little bit late. I think first period with some people coming in late. I started late, went over the test a little bit, so it just went a little bit later than it should have. The questions are not there. What do you, really? Hold on. I know there's no question on the Google Doc. Yes, I was lazy. You know, making these sometimes a real pain in the butt. So the questions are here. So read the question and just answer one. I'll do you a solid and say you don't have to restate the question. Emmanuel, I'm glad you like the lesson. That's good. I mean, this is, you're all going to make money eventually. I mean, this is stuff that's going to be pertinent to you as you guys going to get older. But I can understand as an 8th grader where it's like, I'm not making much money yet. So like, it's not the most pertinent information, but this is important because it does relate to how your life's going to be, a little bit later on. All right. But these questions are PDF. You just answer them on the Google Doc. You have until the end of the night to do it, so take all the time you need. All right. What time will this lesson be posted? My Wi-Fi was terrible, and oh, Anicia, no problem. Let's say by 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. it should be up. All right, I'm stopping the recording now, so I'll say by 10 a.m. it should be up. Why do school systems not teach about more life lessons like making money? I think they do. I think that's like something that a lot of people kind of just say, but there's plenty of lessons that go through with it. It's just not the focus of curriculums, where maybe it should be the focus of the curriculums. I'm not opposed to it, right? I don't know how much you need ELA and math and social studies and science sometimes, as opposed to actually making money and finances and stuff. But there's high school courses, there's college courses that do it. We should be. All right, so it is 9:12. You guys can go. All right, I apologize. I ran a bit late with the lesson, but I trust you guys to make it up. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.